So there's a lot of issues with government in terms of government can force involuntary transactions, and they can correct for market failures, positive and negative externalities. So and then they can reduce private sector economic risks. So they do involuntary transactions to to allow for to subsidize positive externalities and to tax negative externalities. So they enforce involuntary tax transactions through taxation and subsidy. So they can do that, and also they can force transaction to not occur. So like they could reject a merger between two companies if they are too large. So like, for example, they rejected merger between two of the largest banks in Canada because it would be too anti-competitive and prices would become too high. So they can stop a transaction from occurring. That's a lot of what they do with that. And then so the problem with directing and managing a government is there's no invisible hand. There's a massive size and scope. There's a need for bureaucracy. There's a need for paperwork and flexibility. And there's the information aggregation problem and lack of accountability. So government failure refers to inefficient outcomes caused by shortcomings in the public sector. So the government may put their interests ahead of voter interests, and then they also may put the interest of special interest groups over a majority of voters. So that happens too. So like these two big issues happen where it's their interests over the voter interests, or the special interest groups' interests over our interests. So a few problems that do happen are the principal agent problem. So interests of agents that can differ from those of the principal. So the interests of politicians can be different than the interests of the public, and that happens a lot. And then special interest effect, small group obtains large gains at the expense of a much larger group who individually suffer small losses. Sorry about that, everybody. Yeah, just some internet issues. Sorry about that. So fiscal policy is when there are changes in tax rates and spending levels to offset the business cycle. So taxation to generate revenue for the government, and then spending to spend money for the government. And the monetary policy is using the interest rate to regulate the economy. So higher interest rates means lower money supply, and then lower interest rates, higher money supply. So fiscal policy and monetary policy can be used for political reasons. So they may raise the interest rate because the public wants them to. So that might be the case. So with inflation, the high inflation we're facing right now, they're increasing interest rates to bring down inflation. And then so inefficient regulation and intervention. So they may deregulate. Sorry, everybody. So what I'm going to do now is, since I'm having some internet issues, I'm going to do an alternative thing. So I'm just going to just give me 1 second. I'm just going to do it mostly over phone for Zoom.
So, can everyone hear me? Yes, I can hear you, sir.
Thank you. Thanks for confirming. So sorry about that, everybody. So if the PowerPoint goes out again, we will just PowerPoint goes out again. We'll just go on audio, just audio. So political corruption is the unlawful misdirection of government resources or actions for personal gain. And there's two basic forms of corruption. Government. We're going through chapter 5 and chapter 6. So we're going through government failures, and we're going through elasticity. So corruption happens a lot in the government with bribery, and also like bribery to get things done is a big thing that they do. So they may bribe public done for their interest in bribery. Still, when it's a bribery, the government, then if there's a lot of bribery. The government isn't perfect. There are issues with the government. There are a lot of inefficiencies. Because they will produce enough of it for efficiency. However, private companies would not produce the efficient amount of public transit. Can you think of anything else that that is in the right sector, if it's in public sector or private sector, and talk about why it should be in that sector? Can you think of any other industry that should be in one particular sector? Yeah, accommodation would be a good one. Yeah, I think. Can you elaborate? Like, can you say more on that? Of the public sector, because rentals cost too much in the private sector and should be subsidized, because we have a serious homeless problem. Accommodation by the private sector. Okay. What types of accommodation would you like? Do you mean rentals and like houses, or? Oh yeah, true. Yeah, hotels. Okay, that's a good example. Yeah, hotels run by the private sector makes sense. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, like it's working well in the private sector already. So it being a public sector thing, it doesn't need to be a public sector thing. It works well in the private sector. So that's a good example. Singapore's health system is very good in terms of lowest rate of infant mortality and the fourth highest life expectancy in the world. And they spend less per person on healthcare than any other developed nation. This works because there's a lot of competition in the Singapore healthcare system. But the flip side of that is there's high out-of-pocket costs for customers. And then people have to save for future healthcare expenditures. So that's the problem with it, but there's a lot of good aspects of that system. Privatization, there are good aspects of privatization, but a lot of very low-income people won't be able to afford that. So we're gonna go through our next activity. I'm just gonna show you something quick here. So this is website. I want to show you. It's a good introduction to stock trading. It's called How the Market Works. Similar to that exercise we did last week with the trading commodities. This is how the market works, and you can register, open an account, and it's a good way to start learning stock trading. So I recommend you open an account, and then there's a video on it. I'm gonna try to get it up. I believe it's having internet issues right now. But here, so you can make an account, and to trade a stock, you go to make a trade. And then let's say we want to buy, select to buy. Say you want to buy a BMO stock, let's say. You want to buy like 100 shares. You would put a limit. Let's say, so the price is 94.23 right now, roughly. It's 94.23. Let's say we want to put a limit price. So we do 450 and go till the end of the day. So click to preview order, click to confirm order. We ordered it successfully. Let's go back to our portfolio. And I don't think it's been bought yet, but yeah, it's gonna go through soon. Yeah, but that's how you use this thing. So I recommend you to make an account, and then we can next class you want me so let's get started here. So we'll go through this. The public choice theory is the economic analysis of government decision-making, politics, and elections. So it's hard to determine voter preferences, and then the majority voting system. So majority voting systems. So like people, let's say 51% or higher. You need to get 51% of the vote or higher. It's hard to determine what the voter preferences are, and it's hard to determine what the government can do to meet the wants of voters. The majority voting determines the size and scope of government involvement in the economy. It determines preferences, and results can be inconsistent and imperfect. So So in order to make cost be greater than total cost, or total cost to be less than total benefit. So that's efficient. But inefficient is when total cost, but inefficient, no vote is when total benefit is greater than total cost. Inefficient, yes vote is when total cost equal. We want total benefit to be greater than total cost, or total cost to be less than total benefit. And in this case, net benefit will be positive when it is efficient. So we want to focus on efficiency. Can you think of examples of groups that come together to lobby, like to push for a certain public good? Can you think of a certain public good that's out there that people, like, they group together to influence the government to get more of that public good? So a good example is education workers. Oh, heavily taxed imports. Okay, that's good. That's a good one. Yeah. Heavily taxed imports is great for more tax to protect Canadian companies. So that's a big thing. So like that's a great example, Jerry. Yeah, like they push to protect Canadian workers, protecting Canadian workers. So they do this in dairy. So dairy farmers do this through supply management. That's a good example, Jerry. And then also education workers have excellent unions. That meet with like that protests and negotiate hardening. So that happens with heavily taxed imports, education workers, and other groups. So this is a comparison of what election. If it comes to national defense versus roads, people find national defense to be more important. So they'll vote for national defense over roads. So so people would vote for more national defense over more road spending for most elections. And then road versus weather warning system, people will focus on more roads. They will vote for more roads. And national defense versus weather warning system, if they are compared, weather warning system would be voted on more, based on Benson, Adams, and Conrad's studies. But this might be different now because these studies were done years ago, so it might be different now. It might be different in different elections. Like I know some elections trade imports on import taxes on trade are more important. And then in some other elections, healthcare is more important. So it just depends on the election for the most part. The law of demand is, so an increase in price causes a decrease in quantity demanded, vice versa. So elasticity shows what happens to quantity demands when a price changes. So it determines, so elasticity shows how much quantity demanded changes for every change in price. So it's very useful because you can use it to figure out how much you should increase prices until people stop coming to your store. So when quantity demanded responds strongly to a change in price, demand is elastic. So in this case, would you think price changes are, like, price increases are good in this case for the company? Would they want to increase prices if the quantity demanded responds strongly to that? Oh, sorry. Okay, so sorry for phrasing sort of that. So if quantity demanded changes a lot for every small change in price, would a company want to increase prices? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So they would lose a lot of customers for increasing prices in that case. So that's a good job, Vivian. So what types of companies would this happen with? Yeah, good point. Yeah, wholesale would be a great one. That's great. Excellent job, Jerry. And then when quantity demand responds weakly to change in price, demand is inelastic. So if quantity demanded changes a little bit for every small change in price, would a company want to increase prices? Yeah, actually, you got it, Gregory. That's great. So yes. And then what types of companies would this happen with? Like, what can you think of for an example? That's great. So what types of industries or companies can you think of that could have this happen? Yeah, luxury brands, I would say. Yeah, that's good because the buyers already have a lot of money. Good one. Food producers. That's so like Vivian is right. So I'd say food producers for like staple, like for necessary foods, like baby formula. Let's say they can charge a very high. They can increase prices a lot for that kind of thing because people will need it anyway. Gas companies in the area without good public transit. That's a good one because they don't have any other option. Technology companies. That's good. It's a good one to use now. So like Apple. They can charge any price for the iPhone basically. They're charging $1,000 an iPhone. So those are good examples, everybody. Great job. So if the quantity demanded increased from 4 to 5 units, the percentage change would be be 25%. That's good. Yeah, Gregory's got it. So any sector without viable competition or alternatives for consumers, that's good. Yeah, like if there's only one option, they can, like if it's a monopoly, so like if it's a monopoly, monopolies can set prices anywhere they want because there is no other option. Everyone has to go to them. Therefore, they have to pay any price, basically. That's the issue with monopolies. So that's a good point, Gregory. Then, yeah, if the quantity demanded dropped from 5 to 4, the percentage change would be 20%. So to do that, you would do 5 minus 4 divided by 5 equals 1 divided by 5 equals 20%. So what happens is we use average change in quantity demanded. So we would average, this is how we do elasticity, is elasticity is calculated as so average change quantity demanded, top quantity, the bottom price. So here, to calculate this example, so you'd have to take the change of 4 to 5, put it here. So just to calculate this example, you would take the difference between 4 and 5 and put it on the top, and put 4 on the bottom here, 5 on the bottom here. And then the 20 you would put here, the 10 you put here, then you find a change in 20 and 10 here. So yeah, here, once you do that, the change in the 4 and 5 would be 1. And then you put the 4 and 5 here to find the average. That's how you calculate elasticity. So you take the average change in quantity on the top, divided by the average change in price on the bottom. That would be 0.33 in this case. So we use percentages rather than absolute amount because and then it just compares the change. So like the change in quantity demanded versus change in price. And then price elasticity of demand will always be negative because price and quantity are inversely related. So quantity demanded goes up for price decreases. So it'll always be negative because one goes up, one goes down. So it's elasticity of demand is negative, but a lot of the time they get rid of the negative sign. They just look at it as a positive. So if it's greater than 1, demand is elastic. So price, so quantity of demand will change a lot for every change in price. And this is usually for products that aren't needs, products that are needs. Will change a little for every change in price. That are needed by people. Then perfectly inelastic is when quantity of demands will never change for any change in price. Like they could charge 1 billion for 1 million for something and raise the price to anything they want. So that's perfectly inelastic here. And then perfectly elastic is quantity of demands will change infinitely, will change completely for any change in price. So like groceries would be like this, because any price change will cause customers to go to another store. And then perfectly inelastic. So perfectly inelastic, like life-saving medication would be under that, because people will pay any money for it. So those are examples there. So this is perfectly inelastic demand right here, this one. So like life-saving medication would be this. Life-saving medication would follow this, where people will pay any price for the product. And yeah, basically. And then this right here would be so the price, this would be like groceries. So like a perfectly competitive market, groceries. So if Walmart increases their average prices by a little bit, people will shift their buying to another store. So that would be like an example of a grocery store. So total revenue changes in the opposite direction from price, demand is elastic. Total revenue changes in the same direction as price, demand is inelastic. Total revenue doesn't change when prices changes, demand is inelastic. They can maximize profits when they charge this price. This will actually maximize revenue. So if they charge this price, revenue will be maximized. So you can track, like if you put the demand curve over the total revenue curve, you can track where revenue will be maximized. So so you could do this if you become an accountant, like, or run a business where the demand curve becomes unit elastic, that is where you maximize revenue. So like if the price elasticity of demand is -1, you maximize revenue there. So like you could figure out where to, like you could do extra you could do analysis on this. If it's unit elastic, where price elasticity of demand is -1 right here, you can maximize revenue. So you can use this to figure out where to make the most sales. Like what price is set to make the most sales. So in this case, $5 is the price that maximizes sales. So this would be a good analysis. Set it, I think, $4.50. Yeah. So demand is more elastic towards the upper left. Demand is less elastic towards the lower right. So in this case, the price per ticket between $5 and $7, it's elastic. And then when price per ticket is $4, that's where it's unit elastic. And total revenue is $20,000, which is maximized. And then when price per ticket is between $3 and $1, total revenue is inelastic. So you want to be in the middle here. So so middle is maximum revenue. So you want to be so in other words, to maximize revenue, you need to be in the unit elastic region. So make sure to do that. So if price elasticity of demand, if it's elastic, quantity demanded changes by a larger percentage than does price. So if you increase prices, total revenue will decrease. If you price decrease, total revenue will increase. And then if price elasticity of demand is equal to 1% is just price, total revenue is maximized in that case. So we want to set the price at where it's unit elastic. So your goal is to find where it is, and then less than 1 is inelastic. Quantity demanded changes by a smaller percentage than this price. Total revenue increases when price increases, and then total revenue decreases when price decreases. Substitutability. The larger the number of substitute goods available, the greater the price elasticity of demand. So, in that case, the reason why is because if you increase the price of your product, people will shift to the cheaper alternative. And then proportion of income. The greater the proportion of income spent on the good, the greater the price elasticity of demand for it. So, they can just like pull back their spending. They'll spend less on that product. And luxuries versus necessities. The more a good is considered a luxury rather than a necessity, the greater the price elasticity of demand. So easier to do without. So like, can you think of examples of products that you would not buy if like products you would not buy if they went up in price that are more luxury goods? Yeah, exactly. So like, let's say you have Mercedes, they would buy less of Mercedes in that case. Yeah, Nike shoes, that's good. Good one. Yeah, they could always buy like Skechers, let's say, right? That's great. So product demand is more elastic the longer the period under consideration. So customers often need time to adjust for changes in
Thanks.
prices. So, sorry. So, can you think of examples of products that people would not use anymore in the long run if the price is too high? Now, so you may need them now, and you'll tolerate a price increase. But in the future, you have more flexibility, and you can adjust for the change in price. So can you think of any product that would be like that? Yeah, those are good. Those are good. Yeah, like um, so, yeah, good example. Recently, has come down to like 140 lately, but if the price of gasoline keeps going higher, long run people will switch to electric. Short run, it is hard to switch. So yeah, they need time to switch like a gas powered car to electric because it's a long term thing. So it's along the same lines of what Jerry's saying. I think that's what Jerry was talking about. Yeah, so Jerry's one is basically the gas powered example. But Gregory's one with yeah, that would work. Like with short run, they really can't change their buying, but long run they can. They just need time to adjust. So that's So everything is in the long run. So these goods here are inelastic. This is probably not this is definitely not up to date because I think they mean online newspapers here. So like people need online newspapers, like they need their news. I think they mean online news here. But electricity, they need electricity. They need bread. Major League Baseball tickets, that's kind of I think that would be for sports fans that people need sugar, people need eggs, people need legal services, people need all prepared clothing, gasoline, milk, people need household appliances, people need movies, beer, shoes. So let's say the first ones here. So like these inelastic ones, people quantity demanded doesn't change that much for every change in price. So like people will still pay for newspapers, like online news. If the price goes up, people will pay for electricity. If the price goes up, people will still buy bread if price goes up. Big sports fans will still go to baseball games if the price goes up. People will still pay for telephone service, the price goes up, and so on. So all these goods listed here, people still pay for even if the price goes up. But here for these inelastic ones, so inelastic here, elastic, sorry, these are elastic. So people will, so quantity demanded changes a lot for every change in price. Up for motor vehicles, beef, tableware, glassware, land, meals, land, mutton, lamb, mutton, fresh meat. People will reduce the amount. So the inelastic demand for farm products means that a large crop may be undesirable. Sales tax, higher tax on product with elastic demand will bring in less tax revenue. So they usually put taxes on inelastic demand products like liquor, gasoline, and cigarettes because people will still buy these. People will still buy these goods. Therefore, taxing them will not change the sales revenue. And price elasticity of supply. So the main determinant of price elasticity of supply is the amount of time producers have for responding to a change in product price. The supply is more elastic in market period. The supply is more elastic in the long run. So they have more choice in the long run. So also antiques have a highly inelastic supply because antiques, they don't make more of them. There's only antiques in the past, so we can't make more of them. So they're scarce. If they're rare, if something's rare, then it has an elastic supply if people demand it. And then so cross elasticity of demand. Substitute goods have a positive sign of cross elasticity of demand. Complementary goods have a negative sign for cross elasticity of demand. So substitute and bread, let's say, they're unrelated. I'm just gonna go back in 1 second. So price elasticity of supply is the percentage change in quantity of supply. So price elasticity of supply is the percentage change in quantity supplied of a product per percentage change in price of a product. So it's the responsiveness of quantity supplied for every percentage change in price. Yeah. So like it's what happens with quantity supplied based on price changes. So so Coca-Cola versus Sprite, so those are substitutes. So what up they kind of aren't. They're more complements because they're from the same brand. So people buy, let's say, Coke and their decreased total revenue. So it would increase total will increase the quantity demanded of for Coca-Cola, thereby increasing revenue. Then Coke and Pepsi are strong substitutes. So a price cut in Coke. So like in this case, if Pepsi increases in price, quantity demanded for Coke would increase. So their high cross elasticities and large market shares suggest the government would likely block a merger between Coke and Pepsi because it's disgusting competition. So it would cause a monopoly if they were merged together. And they could charge any price because they are the only option, which would hurt consumers. Because consumers would pay way too much money, would pay more expensive prices. So income elasticity of demand. So normal goods would have positive sign. So you buy more normal goods when you have a higher income. And then inferior goods would have negative signs. So you buy more inferior goods when you have a lower income. So normal good example. Any normal goods? Like, do you have any examples of normal goods that you have that you're thinking of? Yeah, organic. Yeah, organic produce would be good. Yeah. So you buy more organic produce if you have more income. Can you think of any inferior goods that you would buy less of if you have more income? Yeah, cheap branded produce. That's good. Yeah, cheaper branded produce. Those are good examples, Jerry. That's great. Then disposable products, low-end phones. That's great. Yeah, great examples. It's great. Great examples. Great. So then high income elasticity. So products with relatively high income elasticity coefficients are hit hardest by recessions. So automobiles, housing, and restaurant meals. So like in this case, so when people, these are normal goods. So when people have lower incomes, they pay less, they buy less automobiles, housing, and restaurant meals. So lower negative income elasticities are least affected by recession. So toothpaste and food products are produced at home. They're recession proof. So, like these will always sell in recessions and in normal economic times. So like these are good recession proof industries, like recession proof industries. So you could invest in them through stock markets, brokerage accounts. So like maybe like you could invest in these businesses through buying their stock because they're recession proof, quote unquote. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, good example. So they buy a used car instead of a new car, and then it's great. So cross elasticity positive. So quantity demanded of W changes in the same direction as change in price of Z. So it substitutes. Cross elasticity is negative. Quantity demanded of X changes in opposite direction for quantity of change in price of Y. So income elasticity, quantity demanded or negative quantity the product changes in Salvador. They just see various provinces. They just see expenditure more of the tax burden. In this case, would pay more of the tax. And then in this case, if so, it's steeper than the supply curve, the consumer will pay more of the tax. So there's efficiency loss of a tax. So like the economy loses some efficiency due to a tax. So in this case, this triangle area here is lost due to tax. So you lose this because of a tax. So this is caused by, so the tax causes underproduction. Therefore, the economy loses output and there is efficiency loss due to a tax. So why do different consumers pay different prices? So this is discrimination. So if some people pay higher prices for something because higher so in this case because they have a higher willingness to pay a lower price for something because they have a lower willingness to pay. So like, for example, they give us some examples. So charges for children versus adults and hairstylists or ski resorts, etc. So like children have a lower willingness to pay. therefore they get a lower price. And then adults have a higher versus offer financial aid to low-income students. So in this case, low-income students have a lower willingness to pay. Therefore, they're charged less with financial aid. So that's a lot of that. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do our next activity. Start this. Let me know. Jump in. Put selling bonds under there. I'll put, where did increased spending go? Oh, yeah, it's off now. Let's go. Cool. Excellent. And then where would basic reserve requirement go? No problem. Where would basic reserve requirement go? Yeah, that's great. And where would raise taxes go? Excellent. So we'll put lower taxes there too. What about decreased interest on reserves? Where would that go? Excellent, great. And then where would deficit go? Excellent. Then what about raised discount rate? Where would raised discount rate go? Yeah. And then spending, and then increased administered rates. Where would that go? Yeah, I think it'll be a monetary. And then where would decreased money supply go? Great. And where would lower reserve requirement go? Well, great. Then what about increased interest in reserves? Where would that go? Great. Then what would lower discount rate go? Buy bonds. Good job, everybody. That was great.